Hello everyone, and welcome back to our platformer tutorial. This is part 3, and we're going to be learning how to handle steep slopes. So in part 2, we basically found out that the cat, when it walks up steep slopes, just zooms up, and it's not realistic, and it doesn't really work very well. So in order to fix that, we're going to change something with our function. And we're going to make a new one, as you might have noticed, called walk. And this myblock, walk, is basically just a myblock with one parameter. Now the parameter is just an input, and in this case it's a number or text. So basically our myblock is called walk, and the one input is called steps. We also want to check this run without screen refresh so that we don't get any weird jittering like the previous one. So now that we have that, we can actually put our blocks inside. Now we start by doing change x by steps. What this does is changes the x position of the character of the player by the number of steps you want. Now we also have a variable which is called ground lift, and I'll get into why that's important later. Next we have a repeat until not touching ground or ground lift equals 8. And then in this repeat, change y by 1, change ground lift by 1. Now, this basically detects if the slope that the cat is running on is steep or not. So basically, if ground lift equals 8, then change x by steps times -1, change y by -8. Basically, this means if the slope that you're trying to climb up is too steep, then basically just go back to wherever you were before. But if it's not too steep, then you can go back up it. So when you show this actually working, the cat, when it approaches this slope, is not able to go up it. But this less steep slope is actually able to be climbed by the cat. So that way, we made it so that the cat cannot climb a way too steep slope, but it can still climb a decently steep slope that makes more sense. Next, we're going to add jumping, which is definitely a lot of fun. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our platformer game tutorial. This is part 4, and we're basically going to take on jumping in this part. So to start off, we want to make a new one flag clicked block, and we're just going to group a bunch of blocks in there. So in this one, we want to have in a forever loop if the key W, which is the key I'm using to jump, is pressed, and the variable in air is less than 8. And then inside of that, we set y velocity to 10. So first, you want to get your variable, which is called in air, and you want to make it so that it's less than 8, and then when the key W is pressed inside of this if statement. So what this set y velocity to 10 does is basically just makes it so that your cat kind of hovers in the air a little bit. It's so that it's, as long as the in air is less than 8, your cat will be able to move upwards, basically. So what in air is we actually, inside of this forever loop, we change in air by 1. And we do that because basically when it's in this forever loop and we're changing in air by 1, it's in the air. But in our handle ground function, we set in air to 0, since we know that when we're using our handle ground function, we're actually touching the ground. So when we're touching the ground, we're obviously not in the air. That way, we set our in air variable to 0. So basically what this does is it just checks if the in-air variable is less than 8, and if it is, then we can jump. And if it's greater than 8, that means we're already in the air, and it basically prevents our cat from like doing things like double jumping. So if we're to test this out, we can see we can move around and then jump up like that. And it works pretty well. You can also change your set y velocity in this part to a bigger number, and it'll actually make your cat jump higher. So if I made it something like 15, the cat would jump higher than it did before. Now there is one issue with this though, and that's why I made this little ceiling over here. So if I were to go under here and then jump, the cat goes right through the ceiling. So we have to make something so that the cat can actually bump his head and not go through the ceiling like that. And we'll show you how to do that in the next video. See you there.